So peace negotiations began January 1919. Woodrow Wilson attended Prime Minister David Lloyd George of England, George Clemenceau of France, and the Big Three wrote the peace treaty. There was not a representative from Germany or the Bolshevik Russia. Wilson came with specific goals, and these goals were known as the 14 points, which included things like total freedom of the high seas, self-determination for ethnic minorities in Europe, creation of an international forum, which was the League of Nations, peace without harsh penalties on Germany. But neither England nor France had any intention of allowing peace without victory. Wilson's health seriously deteriorated while these negotiations were going on. He suffered from a series of small strokes, and it dramatically changed his demeanor and personality, and those around him became quite alarmed by his behavior. Germany did pay a very heavy price for initiating the war, and remember I told you on one of the videos to think of World War One and World War Two as part one and part two. And the main reason for that is that since Germany had to pay such a heavy price, the blame was placed entirely on Germany for kicking off World War One, and it became known as the War Guilt Clause. And eventually, this became a rallying cry for German fascists. Germany had to pay England, France, and the U.S. for the expensive fighting to the tune of $33 billion in 1921, and that was to be due in installments. Now, keep in mind, $33 billion then, run that, if you've got your phone out, you can run that on an inflation calculator, and it'll kind of give you what it would be in today's money. They did require that the Rhineland as a demilitarized zone. Germany lost crucial resources in the Ruhr Valley, and they were forbidden to have a government-supported military. Wilson felt that those penalties were too harsh. Wilson returned to the U.S. with some of his 14 points met, those being guaranteed freedom of the high seas, the League of Nations, and he saw this as being the most important, which was attempt to create to sit down and try to create a resolve before war. But Republican senators blocked the U.S. participation in the League of Nations. So Wilson thought he could sway Congress by going around them and swaying the American people. So he undertook a tour around the U.S. to various cities and towns, and while he was in St. Louis, he suffered a series of debilitating strokes. So speculation was that he was no longer able to carry on with his presidency. Mentally, he was alert, and he was able to finish his second term. So that's kind of how World War One ends. It does set the stage completely for World War II to happen. And primarily the intermission that is seen between World War I and World War II is this vicious cycle of loan payments. And I'm sorry, my dog is doing things in the background. Is this vicious cycle of circular loans that we'll get into here in the next couple weeks and things like that, that causes Germany to just kind of rise up on their own and become something they're trying to protect themselves. We'll look at that when we move ahead. But it really does set the stage for what is to come. These peace negotiations did, and the peace treaty there. So in conclusion, this week, you are actually not going to have a discussion forum. I want you to put as much time as you can into the primary source analysis, because you are going to have to incorporate a lot of different parts to it. You're going to be looking at a letter from Teddy Roosevelt. And it is a letter in response to him losing his sons there in World War One. Keep in mind, Teddy Roosevelt Jr. does not die in World War One. He actually sees it all the way through, and he will actually go into D-Day during World War Two. But I want you to look at that letter. I want you to spend a lot of time working on that primary source analysis. Synthesize as much of the information as you can into it, things that you know, because again, this will be the base of your paper. When you get it back, this time I will be printing those documents out and I will be writing all over them and uploading them to send back to you. So you have a good good bit to go with. As we move forward, you'll actually have a chance to turn in a fairly completed draft of your paper for me to proofread for extra credit for this semester. So again, if you've got any questions, give me a shout and I will address them as I can. Have a good week, guys.